Hello, and welcome to Discord Survival 101 for Flights of Foundry. I will be your host for this training session. I am Jessica Eanes, except for when I'm in ALA. I'm the president of the Dream Foundry, and will be happy to answer any questions if you ping me on Discord after you join. Stealthily hiding in the background is Cislin Smith, our secretary, but she will not be appearing on camera. She'll just be helpfully answering things and helping us demo things out. Right now, you should be seeing a title screen with timestamps for skipping ahead to different parts of the video if there's a particular topic you want to see reviewed so that you don't have to watch the whole thing. Go ahead and take a look at that and feel free to skip around in the video as is your need. All right, now let's go ahead and get started. The first thing is going to be the process for going ahead and joining our Discord. If you're already on the Dream Foundry Discord, you're not going to have to go through this step. If you're there before about April 12th, the demo that we are about to show you is not going to look the way that the Discord does. We have a practice space set up that's mocking up how things will look when we switch them over for the actual convention. So again, on the Dream Foundry Discord before April 12th, things will look a little bit different from what we're showing in this video, but after April 12th, things will look very similar. So the first step is going to be just joining the Discord. You should have the link for the Discord. If you click that link and go ahead and go to Discord, it'll prompt you to create an account if you haven't already. Then it'll launch the app, and you'll wind up in a place much like this one right here. This will bring you up to our rules page. This is where you can find all of the information about what the rules are for interacting in our space. There's a link to our code of conduct, and there are some tips about appropriate behavior and conduct. Go ahead and read through these before you click through. All of the advice here is meant to be targeted and useful, and it's not that much, so you can handle that. When you're comfortable having read everything, go ahead and click the I have read and agree to the rules button, click submit, and then you will be loaded into the server. You'll see that there's this handy dandy announcement where they announce that you have arrived. Frequently, people will do these reacts at the bottom to wave or say hello. If you're not familiar with emoji reacts, this is a thing that happens on Discord where people can respond or share support or enthusiasm or other reactions without having to fill up the conversation with lots of things that aren't necessarily contentless, but don't really advance the conversation much. You can have a lot of fun with them. If you click this button right here with the smiley face, you can see all of the various reacts that are available. And so there's a lot there that you can do with that. Go ahead and have fun with that. Sometimes, but not always, there will be a person who says hi. It just depends on who's around. It's not personal about you. If there are people around and they say hi, feel free to say hi back. It's also okay if you don't want to talk right away. That's it for joining the server. That's the first big step. You'll have that handled. Once you're on the server, you may find that you want to change your nickname. It could be that you normally use Discord in other contexts, and it's going to be hard for people to recognize you. It could be that this is your first time and you didn't realize how you're going to appear. So what you can do is you can go ahead and right-click on your name over here where you have commented, or you can go over to this menu on the right side where you see yourself listed and right-click on yourself there. At the bottom of that menu is this Change Nickname button. And so you can change that to make you appear the way that you want to so that people can recognize you. So I tend to change my username so that people know that I am both Jessica Eanes and an ALA, and then it's easy to recognize me even if you know me in only one of those contexts. The next thing to show you is going to be this menu over here on the left. These are all of the different channels that are available for discussion. At the top up here are the server info channels. These are useful for engaging with the server, but there's not a lot of conversation there. So you're not going to be spending much time there. Below that are the Flights of Foundry admin channels. So this is where announcements about the convention will be happening, where you can go in order to get support if you have questions during the convention about anything from exactly where you should be in Discord, how you get your links to a session, anything like that. This is where the support staff will be to help answer those questions. And then this Who's on Call channel will be where you can see which members of the safety team are on duty at that time. If you want to direct message a member of the safety team to talk about something, this is where you can go to see who's you can expect a pretty quick response from. If you do wind up direct messaging somebody who isn't on duty, they might be asleep or away from the computer, and there could be a delay before you get a response. So check out this channel for that. Below those channels are the actual convention spaces, and it's best if you don't have experience with this kind of internet style communication, if you never use AOL Instant Messenger or IRC or something like that. It's easiest if you think of these as being somewhat equivalent to physical room spaces. So for each of the main streams, we have 2 of these channels, odd and even. The odd ones are for any programming items that happen on odd hours, and the even ones are for any programming items that happen in that space on even hours. So this way, if you watch a panel that happens at 1 p.m., and at the end of the panel, there's still so much conversation going on, you're still talking to the panelists and asking questions and having a lot of back and forth, you don't have to then immediately rush out to somewhere else. You can go ahead and stay here for about another hour without stomping on anybody else's conversation. Because the next panel at 2 p.m. will then pick up at Bartholomew even, and they'll be able to go without talking back and forth on top of each other. So there are channels for each of those spaces. In addition to the dealer's room, which you're going to want to check out, this is where you can interact with our vendors and our dealers and check out their goods. A lot of them have deals or special offers they're making to a convention attendee, so you're not going to want to miss that out. We have the con suite here. This is where we're going to all be gathering to eat. There's a menu. You should chat about food or whatever else, kick up your feet, do whatever it is that you would regularly do in a con suite. Just a very relaxed space, no particular topic. Similarly for the hall, the lobby, and the cafe. These are all social spaces where there's not a set topic, but if you're chatting with people and you're like, hey, we want to keep in touch, we want to keep talking about this other thing that isn't necessarily about what's going on in any of the programming, these are the spaces for you to do that. The game room is for, this is the spaces where people are going to be playing games. If you are participating in any of the gaming activities, this is the place where you're going to want to go. And below those are the regular Dream Foundry channels. So if you have been on the Dream Foundry Discord prior to the convention, if you stick around after the convention, these are the spaces that are normally here and normally at the top. About a week after the convention, we're going to go ahead and archive all of the convention channels, so they'll fall away, and this is what'll be what's left. There are great spaces. We definitely want you to hang out. We have a lot that goes on during there. You should feel free to use the convention as an opportunity to check them out and see how they go. But these are not going to be the primary spaces that you're worried about during the convention. If you are just completely overwhelmed, this is a very long list of spaces. There's a lot going on. If you want to mostly just focus on the convention, what I recommend that you do is you go to these categories with the other channels, right-click on them, and choose Mute Category. And so you can mute the category for up to 24 hours or just semi-permanently until you turn it back on. Even if you mute it until you turn it back on, you'll see the category there in gray. So you're not going to have lost it. You're not going to forget that it's there. It's not hidden from you, but it'll be grayed out, so it's not really taking up much visual real estate. You won't see when there are new comments posted in there. You won't get notifications from it. And so it's basically like it's not there for you, and you can just ignore it and leave it be. It's a really good way to kind of narrow down the space that you have to worry about. Similarly, if you're at a point in the convention where you're not doing much paying attention to any of the programming and you want to focus just on the social spaces, you can go in and mute individual channels. And you can even do it for just an hour, and then it'll come back on its own without you having to do any kind of manual clicking. So if you're in a space where you're like, I really just need to hang out in the con suite and chill for a little while and ignore everything else, You can mute everything else for an hour and it'll come back when you've had that opportunity to rest and recharge. Let's talk a little bit about this roles channel up here in the server info. This is something you're going to probably want to check out fairly shortly after joining. Right now in this practice space, we only have one of the roles polls posted, but there will be several that are appropriate for the convention in there. The way these work is they're done like a poll. So you'll have a variety of responses that you can give that have different meanings. In this case, this is the pronouns role bot. So you can choose whichever combination of these is appropriate for you for your pronouns. I'm she, her, so I would want 5. I would click 5, and then I would now have for anyone to see this she, her role so that people can know that the correct pronouns to use for me are she, her. If I misclicked the button or if my relationship with these pronouns changes and I want something different, I can go ahead and change that myself just by clicking that button again. And you'll see that the she, her role isn't there anymore. If it were appropriate for me to choose they, them, and she, her, I can go ahead and click both, and people will then see they, them, and she, her there as both being appropriate options. So when you join the server, you probably want to check out the roles channel. Go ahead and take a look at each of the role polls and go ahead and make the choices that are appropriate for you. This is a really great way to help signal to other people what the best way to interact with you is. One of the options says whether or not you're willing to be asked for advice, whether you're willing to be approached by direct message. You can identify which areas of the industry you come from, things like that that'll make it easier to facilitate conversation in that way. Another thing for you to know, we mentioned when we were talking about the Who's on Call channel, you'll see that this is an announcement channel you can't respond to, but this is where you find who's on duty in the safety team. If you want to contact the safety team, you can either, as I mentioned, DM, direct message one of the people who's posted there. So for example, this is Sislin right here. If I had something that I wanted to talk to the safety team about and I wanted to have a conversation about it fairly soon, I could go ahead and click on Sislin here. And click message. And this will take me to my direct message history with Sislin, which I happen to have because we message each other a lot. But I could go ahead and say, and I can send her that message and she can go ahead and respond, and we can conduct things that way where nobody else can see it. In this case, there's nobody in the con suite, so I don't really have anything to report. If it's a different situation where I don't necessarily want to have a private conversation with somebody, say I'm in a conversation going on in the Toast channel and something happens either on the panel or in the conversation around the panel that I am kind of uncomfortable with, or things are getting heated, I might want to say something like, and so I might just want to send a quick message to the safety team, hey, things are getting pretty heated in here. Can somebody step in? And then the safety team can come in, and if they weren't already watching what's going on, catch up and de-escalate the situation or take care of it as is appropriate. This will summon everybody who is on duty. They'll all be able to see it. This also, anybody who's in the channel will be able to see it. So it's not as private as a direct message, but it is very clear. It's very straightforward, and you will see a direct intervention happening very quickly. Generally, you can expect if you at the safety team publicly that we will follow up with you privately just to check in and make sure that you're okay. If that's not something that you particularly want to deal with, when we check in, go ahead and say, I'm fine, leave me alone, and we'll respect that. The other option, just so you know, this isn't specifically a Discord thing, but if the other option for contacting the safety team is to email safety@flightsoffoundry.org. That's hyphens between flights of and Foundry. If you send that email, the response will be slower than if you use the Discord, but we will get back to you and we will take that seriously. So if it's a situation where an email feels like the most appropriate approach, you have that option and you should feel free to avail yourself of it. So that's pretty much it for using Discord as a convention attendee. There are a few things that you might want to be aware of if you are a presenter or a panelist or otherwise a guest of the convention, because things are going to be a little bit different for you, and we'll go ahead and show you that here now. So Sislin, if I could be in guestified, please. Woohoo! I am suddenly a presenter. So you'll see that, for one, I now appear in the presenter category. And so others will be able to tell that I am a presenter. So if they're wondering, is that the same Jessica Anea person who was speaking on that panel? Then they can see, yeah, that probably was. I was, in fact, a panelist. As a panelist, I will also suddenly get access to additional spaces that are useful for me as a panelist. Specifically the green room, which is located in this extra category that has appeared underneath the gaming section. So in the green room, this is only available to panelists and presenters. So you've got a little bit of privacy for asking questions that you might feel a little bit embarrassed by. You shouldn't be embarrassed by any of the questions, but we understand that should and actual feelings sometimes don't line up, especially when we're stressed. So this is a private space where you can say, hey, I'm so sorry. I lost all the emails with my panel links. Can you resend those? You'll get the same response here doing that as if you went to con support, but this will just be in a more secluded space. This is also a good place if you want to touch base with your other panelists. Say something like, is the room acting oddly for anyone else? Or is that just me? And then your other panelists can potentially pipe in and say, no, it's being a little weird for everyone. And or they can say, we think it's probably just you. Can you refresh your browser? Something like that. So this is that space for that. If you have anything specific that you want to address, any announcements that we wind up making that are specific to panelists, we're going to probably place here. That doesn't mean that you have to make a point of continuing to read this channel, because if we make an announcement like that, what we're going to do is we're going to ping you. So for example, I believe that a ping to all of the presenters is about to appear in this channel right now. And so that will have me added. And while I'm looking at it right here, I can see that it's highlighted, which means it's important. If I'm over somewhere else in the Discord and somebody also pings me in the green room, what happens is even neater, because I'll see that there's a new message there. And when I am pinged, what happens is I get an extra notification to draw my attention to that space so that I know that there's something for me to see. Like so. So we have some important news. Brownies are now available in the con suites. And we've got that extra ping, which brings my attention so that I know that the brownies are available in the con suite. So perhaps that's something I will want to announce on my panel that I'm about to start. Sislin points out that we would not, in fact, ping you to let you know that there are brownies in the con suite, which is just stingy of us, frankly, but also true. One thing for you to note, it can seem like a good idea to go ahead and do broad pings in general to draw attention to things. As a culture, the Dream Foundry server and consequently the Flights of Foundry spaces frown on poorly targeted pings. So we prefer it if you at an individual or if you at a category that was explicitly opted into for the purposes of being added for the thing that you are pinging them for. So in general, avoid broad pings in categories that were not explicitly opted into for that purpose.